Hello, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I talk a lot about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I talk a lot about the injury that I recently sustained from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then I also like to sprinkle in health and wellness and little bits and pieces from my lifestyle, which we will be talking about today. So what we're chatting about today doesn't exactly have to do with Jiu-Jitsu, but it does have to do with health and my lifestyle and the way that I eat. So all of that does kind of circle back to jiu-jitsu. So something that I've become really interested in and really passionate about is what is really in our food and where does our food come from? I think 2020 opened up a lot of people's eyes to various things that I won't mention on here, but one of those things I will mention, and that is what we are being fed. To keep this video as simple as possible, there's 3 things that I want to talk about that have to do with my diet. The 3 things that we're going to chat about in this video are eggs, milk, and red meat. Purchasing these things in the grocery store can be kind of confusing with all of the labels that companies put on the products, especially if you're trying to learn a little bit more about your food and if you're trying to start buying better quality products. If you don't eat these things, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you that you have to eat these things, that you have to eat the way that I do. I just want to make it a little bit easier for you to figure out how to buy better quality items. So the first food item that I want to talk about is eggs. And I know that we're all a little bit in hysterics right now because the egg prices have skyrocketed so much. But to be quite honest, I've always spent a little bit more money on eggs. Eggs have always been pretty expensive for me because I don't just buy the store's own brand of eggs. Again, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you that you're eating the wrong thing, but I do want to let you know why I've always chosen to spend a little bit more money on eggs, and maybe it'll just open up your eyes to start thinking about maybe purchasing better quality eggs yourself. So if you want to start buying better quality eggs, what are some things that you want to look out for? Because companies slap on these labels onto the egg carton, and to be honest, if you don't do a lot of research on it, it can be really confusing and you kind of wonder, well, what's the difference? So one thing you might see on an egg carton, and you might think it's better than regular schmegular eggs, is the label that says cage free. This label is regulated by the USDA, so it does in fact mean that the hens are outside of a cage. But what's not regulated is how much room those hens actually have. For all we know, it could literally mean the hens are outside of a cage, but they're in a cement building. They could be roaming in a crowded room, in a crowded building, on cement, no grass, no dirt. There could be 0 sunlight. There could be unclean conditions. They could be all packed in together. That is what cage-free means. So if you're going to spend a little bit more money to get better quality eggs, don't get the cage-free ones because that label doesn't really mean too much. So don't waste your money. So now that we can probably all agree that cage-free doesn't actually mean that anything is better, what's the next label that you might see? The next label you might see is free range. And for chickens to be free range, they must have access to the outdoors. So this is definitely a step up. Now, of course, this is not perfect either. So the problems with free range is that the amount of time that they have outside is not regulated. So they technically have access to the outdoors. They could be inside in a building and there might be a small door for them to go outside, but who's to say that every chicken is going to go outside every single day? The chickens are guaranteed a little bit more space in the free range category versus the cage free. Each chicken is given 2 square feet of space. So if you want to spend a little bit more money to get healthier eggs, I would definitely recommend getting free range versus cage free. And now the third label that you might see in the grocery store is pasture raised. Outdoors, in the sun, on the grass, roaming the pasture. Every week I order my eggs from a farm, but if I forget, which does happen quite often, or we run out, pasture raised eggs are the eggs that I'm gonna look for in the grocery store. And then quickly, just another label that you might see. It could be on pasture raised, free range, it could even be see on the cage-free eggs, and that is that the hens are vegetarian fed. It could even be organic vegetarian fed, which just means the hens were fed organic grain. The problem with this is that chickens are omnivores. They love eating plants, they love eating grass, but they also love eating bugs, they love eating worms. So you do have to wonder, when these hens are labeled as vegetarian fed and they're only eating grains, is that really the healthiest diet for the hens? So in an ideal world, the chickens are raised on a farm, they have open land to forage for grass and plants and bugs. They may also get supplemented with grains. So just remember, and I will say this about each topic that we talk about today, the happier the animal, the healthier the animal, the better product that they're going to give you. All right, now let's get into probably my favorite thing to talk about these days, and that is pasteurized milk versus raw milk. I started drinking raw milk probably about a year ago, and learning about conventional milk that you buy in the grocery store has just been really eye-opening for me. So let's first clarify the main thing. Pasteurized milk is milk that has undergone high heat to kill potential bacteria. Raw milk has not undergone any heat, so none of the bacteria and none of the nutrients have been killed. So essentially, it's a live food. The problem with pasteurized milk is because it undergoes the high heat, yes, it does kill off bacteria, but some of that bacteria is good. And at the same time, it also kills off a lot of the nutrients that are in the milk. Or it changes the structure of the nutrients, like the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes, which we will get into, and it makes them not easily used by our body. And what I think is so interesting is milk was not always pasteurized. So let's talk about what started that and how did we go from a world of consuming delicious, nutritious raw milk to a society that drinks conventional pasteurized milk from farms that are gross. Milk has always been a staple worldwide in different cultures. Cows were seen as sacred, they were seen as a form of wealth. People knew that milk was healthy. People used it for medicinal purposes. They knew that it was very, very high in nutritional value. At one point in time, milk was definitely one of the most popular drinks. And this is when people were drinking raw milk. People knew where the milk was coming from. People knew their farmers. People knew how the cows were treated. And this is so important. Then the problem started happening when the Industrial Revolution came along. During this time, distilleries started popping up all over the place to meet the demands of all of the people wanting to drink their whiskey. Whiskey was another one of the most popular drinks around this time. This leads to the bright idea to pack the cows in directly next to the distilleries. They wanted to do this in order to feed the cows the byproduct of the whiskey, which is essentially a mash of barley and other grains. They wanted to feed the cows this because it would bulk them up and they could produce more milk. The living conditions for these cows was now less than optimal. They were crowded in together and they were fed these grains that didn't have a ton of nutritional value. So now the cows are getting sick and they started producing this milk, which they called swill milk, which is this sort of pale bluish milk that couldn't be used to drink, to make cheese, to make butter. So man steps in again, as we usually do when we mess things up. They started adding thickeners and preservatives and different powders to make the milk white in order to make it usable. But adding all of these different things to the milk is just masking the problem. The milk is still, it's not good. It's coming from a sick cow. So it's then making all of the people sick. Now this is where pasteurization comes along. They knew that heat could kill bacteria, so they figured they could put the milk under a high heat. It would kill the bacteria and they could continue doing what they were doing, packing the cows in, giving them unhealthy living conditions. The farmers didn't have to be clean. They could still produce this not so great milk. They could put it under heat and kill the bacteria and everything would be fine, and they can still produce all of this milk in mass production. You might still be a little confused. You might be thinking, well, Kim, if pasteurized milk kills the bacteria, then it's got to be okay. And you're saying that all of these farms are gross and you're drinking raw milk from them, you must be crazy. The thing with buying raw milk is when you buy it, it's going to be from a farm that undergoes rigorous testing and it's held up to really high standards to breed these cows to produce this milk that is going to be raw specifically for humans to consume. So now that we have an idea of why ethically raw milk is a bit better than pasteurized milk, let's take a look at physically why it's better. So again, like I said earlier, pasteurized milk undergoes high heat, which kills off bacteria in the milk. Some of that bacteria is good, but at the same time, it also kills off some of the vitamins and the minerals and the enzymes, or it alters their properties so our body can't easily use them. Raw milk, on the other hand, because it hasn't undergone that high heat, all of the nutrients are bioavailable, meaning our body can readily and easily use them. So to make up for the heat killing off the nutrients, companies step in and they now fortify the milk, which essentially means they are adding synthetic vitamins, they're adding them to the milk. The problem with consuming a lot of synthetic vitamins is naturally occurring vitamins are complex and they contain other factors that make them readily available for the body to use. Synthetic vitamins, on the other hand, they're isolated, so their effects are not always able to be used by the body, and sometimes too much of them can be toxic. So the nutritional value of raw milk. Raw milk contains all of your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K, and it also contains your water-soluble vitamins. It contains live functioning enzymes, some from the bacteria in the milk and some from the milk itself, so this makes raw milk really good for your gut. Raw milk contains all of the amino acids, including the 8 essential amino acids that our body can't make. It has all of the fatty acids that our body, especially our brain and our cells, thrive off of. Our bodies love fat. Remember that. Do not be scared of fat. And needless to say, all of those fats are altered by the high heat in pasteurization. So now let's get into the topic of lactose intolerance, because you might be sitting here thinking, okay, this whole raw milk thing sounds pretty good, but whenever I have a glass of milk or ice cream or milk in my cereal, I feel sick. Lactose is the sugar that's in the milk, kind of like the fructose that's in fruit. The difference between lactose and fructose and sucrose is that lactose is slowly digested by the body, so it doesn't give you that big insulin spike like other sugars do. So lactose intolerance is when the body just can't digest that lactose. But naturally, milk has an enzyme in it called lactase, and that enzyme helps the body to digest the lactose. And of course, you can probably guess by now, I hope, that pasteurization kills off the lactase. So that's what makes it really difficult for a lot of people to digest regular milk, because regular milk doesn't have lactase. The bottom line is raw milk has key whole nutrients that our body can easily and readily use, nutrients that the high heat in the pasteurization process kills off. What makes this whole thing even more complicated is that you cannot get raw milk everywhere. Raw milk is actually illegal to sell in some states, including mine, New York, which is so wild to me, you know? And if that doesn't open your eyes to everything in this world, that a super nutrient-dense food is literally illegal to sell in the stores, but if you walk in any grocery store, the majority of the food in that store is literally poison. It's just mind-blowing to me. So I do have to order my raw milk from a farm in Pennsylvania, and they deliver it to Long Island every Friday night. So a lot of times eating a certain way and doing things a little bit differently takes a little bit more money and it takes a little bit more effort. But for me, it's worth it in the long run. I will link the farm that I get my eggs and raw milk from in the description below, and I will also give you another resource in the description description to help you find some raw milk in your area, because sometimes it can be pretty difficult to find. And the third food item that I want to talk about today, raw milk was like the big one that I wanted to talk about. I could go on and on and on, but the third one is beef. It's a little bit more simple. We're just going to talk a little bit about why grass-fed beef is better for you physically and nutritionally, and then again, also ethically. Cows are ruminant animals, which means their bodies are designed to break down grass. So when we start bulking them up with grains and the byproducts of grains, they're given feed that is just not super high in nutrients. They weren't meant to be eating a ton of grain all throughout the year. Grass-fed beef is going to give you more of a nutritional value in the grocery store, but same thing with eggs, same thing with milk, same thing with produce. It is always best, it's always the best option to locally source your products. As a society, we've come so far from knowing our farmers and knowing where our food comes from and knowing how the animals are treated. And I'm guilty too. I am not perfect. I go to the grocery store every single week, but I do try to find the best products available. My husband and I love going to farms. Whenever we go up to New Hampshire to visit my family, we get a ton of meat and eggs from a local farm. We get raw milk from their friends. And at the end of the day, it feels really good to support a small farm. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys maybe learned a thing or two. Again, I am not here to judge the way that you eat. I'm not here to tell you that you need to eat this way. Maybe if your eyes were opened up a little bit, then you can start doing a little bit of research yourself and really dive into what food you're putting into your body. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I could talk about this stuff all day. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And until the next video, I will see you guys next time.